Good day, ma'am. Good day, everyone. I am Ben Velasco, and I'm with Madali and Magallanes in this report. So our topic is all about SQL injection or structured query language data on the web. So first to discuss about the SQL injection will be Madali.
So good day everyone. So by the way we are the group 7 and our topic is all about SQL injection. So by the way, what is SQL injection? So SQL injection is a type of web application vulnerability where an attacker can manipulate and submit a SQL command to retrieve the database information. So this is a web security vulnerability that allows an attacker to interfere with the queries that an application makes to its database. So basically, it generally allows an attacker to view data that they are not normally able to view. So how does SQL injection works? So first, a user provides the username and password, and on the other hand, an attacker sends malicious codes in SQL injection in the web server, so wherein the provided password and username is located. So after that, the web server checks for correct password. So if the attacker successfully log in into the SQL server using the SQL injections, so he or she the authority to do such malicious things in the data. So what are the SQL injection threats? So some of the SQL injection threats are spoofing identity, changing process, tamper with database records, escalation of privileges, and denial of service on the server, complete disclosure of all data on the system, voiding system's critical transaction, and modifying the records. So, SQL injection attacks. So, based on the application and how it processes, users reply data SQL injection can be used to perform the following type of attacks. So, number one type of attacks is authentication by bypass. So here, the attacker could enter into the network without providing any authentic username or password and could gain the access over the network. He or she gets the highest privilege in the network. So next is information disclosure. So after unauthorized entry into the network, the attacker gets access to the sensitive data stored in the database. So another example is the compromised data integrity. So the attacker changes the main content of the website and also enters the malicious content into it. Next example is the compromised availability of the data. So the attacker uses this type of attack to delete the data related to audit information or any other crucial database information. And next example is the remote code execution. So remote code execution wherein an attacker could modify, delete or create data or even can create new accounts with full user rights on the servers that share files and folders. So it allows an attacker to compromise the host operating system. So SQL injection query. So SQL injection queries allows a user to describe or assign the desired data and leave the DBMS or database management system as responsible for optimizing, planning, and performing the physical operations. So SQL query includes a list of columns to be included in the final result of the select keyword. So if the information submitted by a browser to a web application is inserted into database query, so without being properly checked, then there may be a chance of occurrence of SQL injection. So HTML form that receives and passes the information posted by the user to the active server pages or ASP script running on IIS web server is the best example of SQL injection.
So example SQL injection query. The information passed is the username and password. By querying a SQL server database, these two data items are checked. Username blah or one is equals to one double hyphen. Password Springfield. The query executed is select count open asterisk close from user where username is equals to blah or one and password single quotation Springfield single quotation semicolon. However, the space script builds the query from user data using the following line: blah query equals to uh, select asterisk from user where username is equal to blah or one is equals to n password plus Springfield. If the username is a single quote character, the effect of query becomes select asterisk from user where username is equals to triple asterisk single triple single quote and password equal to single quote Springfield single quote semicolon. So, ay semikama. This is invalid SQL syntax and produce a server error messages in the user's browser. The quotation mark provided by the user has closed the first one and the second generates an error because it is unclosed. At this instance, to customize the behavior of a query, an attacker can begin injection strings into it. The content preceding the double hyphen signify a transact SQL comment. So if you can see here, there's the double hyphen. So as you can see that is the attacker launching the SQL injection. So here's the query: select count from user where username is equals to blah or one is equal to one double hyphen and password Springfield. Select count from user. So the following are various steps to be followed to identify SQL injection. So first step, check if the web application connect to a database server in order to access some data. Number two, list all input fields, hidden fields, and post requests whose value could be used in crafting a SQL query. Third is attempt to inject codes into input fields to generate an error. 4. Try to insert a string value where a number is expected in the input field. 5. The union operator is used in SQL injection to join a query to the original query. 6. Detailed error messages provide a wealth of information to an attacker in order to execute SQL injection. So, types of SQL injection. SQL injection is an attack in which malicious code is injected through a SQL query which can read the sensitive data and even can modify, insert, update, and delete the data. SQL injection is mainly classified into two types. So first, blind SQL injection, wherever there is web application vulnerability, blind SQL injection can be used either to access the sensitive data or to destroy the data. The attacker can steal data by asking a series of true or false question through SQL statement. So here in the blind SQL, as you can see, the attacker will ask a question through SQL statement, series of true and false. So by there, you will be attacked by an SQL injection if you encounter some true or false series. So simple SQL injection, a simple SQL injections script builds a SQL query by concaten, concatenate, con, concatenating hard-coded strings together with a string entered by the user. So simple SQL injection is divided into two types. So first is the union SQL injection. The union SQL injection is used when the user uses the union command. So the attacker checks for the vulnerability by adding a tick to the end of a PHP ID got to file. So here's the query for the attack. So if the end no will be put like this, so it would be an union SQL injection attack. So error-based SQL injection, the attacker makes use of the database level error messages disclosed by an application. This is very useful to build a vulnerability exploit request. So here, no, as you can see here, the attacker makes the use of the database level error messages to disclose by an application. So SQL injection methodology. Uh, First, we need to gather information for the system. So next is SQL injection vulnerability detection. Third is launch SQL injection attack. Fourth is extract data. Five is interact with the operation system. Six is compromise the network. So SQL injection methodology, information gathering. So the attacker first gathers all the required information he or she need before the SQL injection attack. So the attacker should have a plan on before making a move. So he or she needs to gather information about the setup of the system. So the attacker must need to know what type of system uh, he or she will attack. So by this time she will know uh, what what techniques or types he should use for the execution of SQL injection. So SQL injection vulnerability detection. So as what I've said, so this is the next step. It's where you detect the weakness of the website or the system that you will have to attack. So if you see um, a weak side of the security of the system, then therefore that will be the spot you will attack. So it would be much easier if you attack those weak spot. So usually, the attacker's job is to identify the vulnerability of the system so that he or she can exploit the vulnerability to launch attack. So next is launch SQL injection attack. So here is whenever there is a weak authentication, that will be the main source for the attacker to enter into the network. And finally, by exploiting the authentication rules, the attacker injects the malicious code of SQL injection. So here's where uh, the attacker detects or knows where to put the malicious code from the system. So by this time, the attacker now will inject the malicious code to your system operation, whereas the code will be injected to your system that should be able to access to your website or to your system. So extract the data. So here's the next step. So the attacker gets access to the network as a privileged user and will be able to extract the sensitive data from the network. So it is very easy once the attacker launch the attack. So the attacker now can create a new privileged user, so he or she now has the privilege to use your system. So next is interact with the operating system. Once he or she gains access, the attacker tries to escalate his or her privilege so that he or she can interact with the operating system. So by this time, the attacker now will code the to escalate his or her privileges. So you will just create a privileges within the system so that he or she can freely access the system. So plus is the fully compromise the system. So by this time, the attacker can modify, delete the data, or create a new accounts as a privileged user, depending on the purpose of the attack. Again, from there, the attacker can log in into the other associate networks. He or she installs Trojans and other keyloggers. So totally crash your system already by this time. So he or she have the fully authorized, or not yet so fully, but have all the freedom to change whatever he or she wants to your system by this time, and he will now try to destroy it by injecting a trojan through your system or keyloggers. So pretty much your system will be dead, presumably within a span of days. So will it be recoverable? I think so, but the process would be highly organized. So next.
Uh, Good day, everyone. I am Diana Velasco, and our topic is all about SQL injection. So, in my part, I'm going to discuss the classes of SQL injection. So, SQL injection attacks can be classified into these following categories. We have the N-band SQLI. So, in this type of attack, the attacker uses the same communication channel to send the attack and receive the results. Second, we have the out of band SQLI. So in this type of attack, the attacker uses a separate communication channel to send the attack and receive the results. In this type of attack, the attacker is able to retrieve the data using a different channel, such as an email or a separate network connection. Third, we have the inferential SQLI. So in this type of attack, the attacker does not receive the results of the attack directly, but can offer but can infer them based on the application's behavior. So each type of skill injection attack has its own set of techniques and characteristics. And understanding this classification can help in developing effective defenses against them. So we have the impact of SQL injection. So we have the uh, Anyway, the impact of skill injection, it actually refers to the negative consequences that can result from a successful skill injection attack on a database-driven application. So here's the breakdown of what each of the points means. So first, we have the leakage of sensitive information. So this skill injection attack can allow an attacker to access and extract sensitive information from a database such as personal data, financial data, login credentials, and more. So this information can be used for identity theft, financial fraud, or other malicious purposes. Second, we have the reputation decline. So a successful skill injection attack can damage the reputation of a business or organization, particularly if sensitive information or customer data is compromised. So this can lead to a loss of trust among customers, partners, and stakeholders. Third, we have the modification of sensitive information. So, in addition to extracting data, SQL injection attack can also modify or delete data in the database. So this can result in incorrect or incomplete information being presented to users and can have serious consequences for business operations. Four, or we have the loss of control of the server or database server. So a skill injection attack can allow an attacker to take control of a database server, giving them the ability to perform a different malicious actions. Like stealing data, modifying data, or even deleting the entire database. Uh, Fifth, we have the data loss. So a SQL injection attack can cause data loss by corrupting or deleting data in database. So this can result also in a loss of important business information or customers' data, since data is very important, right? So next we have the denial of service. So a skill injection attack can use to launch a denial of service attack against the database server, making it unavailable to users. So this can result in lost revenue and also decreased productivity and a negative impact on user experience. So overall, this six impact of SQL injection can be severe, and it's important for businesses and organizations to take steps to protect their applications and databases as well from these types of attacks. So next, I'm going to discuss the skill injection, skill attack steps. So first we have the searching for vulnerable points. So um in this part, so in searching for vulnerable point, we have the attacker first searches for a vulnerable point in the targeted application, then such as input field or URL parameter that accepts user input and it's not properly sanitized. Second, we have the fingerprinting the backend or backend DB. So once the attacker has identified a potential vulnerability, they attempt to fingerprint the backend database by sending SQL queries that reveal information about the database schema, such as table and column names. Third, we have the enumerating or retrieving data of interest. With knowledge of the database schema, um, the attacker can then attempt to retrieve data of interest, such as usernames, passwords, or even other sensitive information. Fourth, we have the eventual exploiting the system once once the information is handy. So once the attacker has obtained the desired information, they can then attempt to exploit the system in different ways or various ways, such as take taking over the operating system or web server, or modifying the data in the database. We have the five OS operating system takeover, data change, web server, tech takeover, etc. So depending on the goals, no, specific goals of the attacker, they may use the information they have obtained to carry out a range of such malicious actions, such as taking over the operating system or the web server, modifying data in the database, or using stolen credentials to access other systems or resources. So overall, these steps involved in a SQL injection attack can vary depending on the specific circumstances and goals of the attacker, but um, the general sequence of searching for vulnerabilities, obtaining information about the database schema, and retrieving sensitive data are common to most attacks. Good. So next, we have the conclusion. So in conclusion about our topic, which is the SQL, so structure, which is a structured query language. So we have the SQL injection is a type of attack that which targets the database-driven applications by exploiting vulnerabilities in their input validation mechanisms. It is a serious security threat that can have a range of negative consequences, including the data theft, thief, modification, or loss, as well as the DOS or the denial of service and damage to reputation. SQL injection is also an attack in which a malicious code is injected through a SQL query, which can read the sensitive data and even can modify like insert, update, delete the data. Third, SQL injection is mainly classified in two types, which was discussed by my group mates, which is the blind SQL injection and then the SQL injection. So basically, this is more on about SQL injection, which is our topic is all about SQL injection. So we have the following types of attacks, which is the authentication bypass, information disclosure, compromise data integrity, compromise availability of data, and remote code execution. And then SQL queries allows a user to describe or assign the desired data and leave the database or DBMS as responsible for optimizing, planning, and performing the physical operations. Then the SQL queries allows a user to describe or assign the desired data and leave the DBMS as responsible for again optimizing, planning, and performing the physical operations. Then we have the common steps as what have discussed. The common steps involved in skill injection attack, which include searching for vulnerabilities, obtaining information about the database schema, and retrieving the sensitive data. So our topic highlights a various negative consequences structured query language injection attacks, such as the leakage of sensitive information, reputation decline, modification of sensitive information, loss of control, and then um, loss of control of the DB server, data loss, and then the DOS or the denial of service. So our report also categorizes SQL injection attacks into three types, which is the in-band, out-of-band, and the inferential, each with their own techniques and characteristics. So we have our topic ended in the with this quote by um, Jeremiah Grossman, so the founder of White Hat Security. So he stated that uh, skill injection is to web applications what ATM skimmers what ATM skimmers are to banks, hidden and dangerous. So this quote emphasizes the hidden and dangerous nature of both attacks. So just as people may not realize that an ATM skimmer has been installed on a machine. So web application owners may not realize that their application owners may not realize that their application is vulnerable to structured query language injection attacks or unjust as ATM skimmers can lead to a financial loss and identity theft for the victims, and then skill injection attacks can lead to the data breaches and compromise the security and privacy of sensitive information. So as what I've discussed, our topic the skill injection attacks are a type of a malicious attack wherein the attacker inserts malicious skill code into a web application's input field to steal or manipulate sensitive data stored in a database. So that's all for our topic, which is all about the skill injection. So thank you, ma'am. Thank you everyone for listening.